Today, we're diving into one of the most tangled and ironic conflicts of our time, Pakistan's shadow war. A war not against its famous rival India, but against the very group it helped bring to power, the Taliban.
So, let's set the scene. It's February 2026. Picture this. Inside the heavily fortified Rawalpindi garrison in Islamabad, Pakistan's top generals are gathered. The mood is grim. They're staring at satellite images of Kabul, facing a problem that is entirely of their own making. The very people they trained and funded for decades have now become the enemy they have to fight.
Then, on February 27th, the country's defense minister, Khawaja Asif, steps up to a microphone and delivers a line that sends shockwaves across the region. Pakistan's patience, he says, has run out. He declares open war. Now, for decades, everyone would assume he's talking about India, right? But he's not. This declaration of war is aimed squarely at the Taliban government in Afghanistan.
And that brings us to the absolute core question of this whole story. Pakistan literally created the Taliban. Their own intelligence agency trained them, funded them, and empowered them. So how on earth did the strategic asset turn into its creator's absolute worst nightmare? Well, the answer is way more complicated than anyone could have ever imagined. To really get how we ended up here, we've got to go back, way back, to the beginning, to a strategic deal that would end up reshaping the entire region. So it all starts in 1994. Pakistan's intelligence agency, the ISI, finds this guy, Mullah Omar, and makes him a deal. Pakistan gives him weapons, money, and training. In return, Omar's new group, the Taliban, takes over Afghanistan. Why? So Pakistan could have what they called strategic depth, basically a friendly, controllable western border, so it could focus all its military power east on its real rival, India. And by 1996, it worked. The Taliban took Kabul. Then, after 9/11, Pakistan played this incredible double game for 20 years, publicly backing the U.S. while secretly helping the Taliban. So you can imagine when the U.S. finally left in 2021 and the Taliban swept back into power, Pakistan was celebrating. They thought, great, our guys are back in charge. But here's the thing they didn't count on. A movement born from religious fanaticism isn't something you can easily control. And that oversight led to a violent, unintended consequence, a phenomenon we call blowback. And this is where a new group crashes the party, the Tehreek-e-Taliban, or TTP, the Pakistani Taliban. Now get this, the TTP's fighters, they came from the exact same religious schools that Pakistan's ISI used to recruit for the Afghan Taliban. They were allies, brothers in arms. But when Pakistan sided with the US after 9/11, the TTP felt betrayed and turned on their former masters. And their goal is simple and terrifying, to overthrow the government of Pakistan. 132. Just let that number hang in the air for a second. 132. That is the number of children, some as young as 8 years old, who were systematically murdered by the TTP in their attack on the Army Public School in Peshawar in 2014. The terrorists went from classroom to classroom, gunning down kids. It was one of the darkest days in Pakistan's history, and it shows you in the most brutal way imaginable what the stakes are in this fight. And this kind of horrific violence created an impossible choice, a geopolitical trap that caught both Pakistan and its old ally, the Afghan Taliban. So here's the paradox. Pakistan is demanding that the Afghan Taliban crush the TTP, who are using Afghanistan as a safe haven to launch these attacks. But the Taliban are terrified that if they attack the TTP, thousands of those hardened fighters will just defect to their biggest rival, ISIS-K. For the Taliban, getting rid of the TTP could actually create an even bigger threat inside their own country. So the bottom line is this: Pakistan cannot accept the TTP's existence, and the Taliban cannot afford to let them go. An impossible stalemate like that, with no easy way out for either side, almost always leads to one thing: a rapid, violent descent into all-out conflict. And just look at the numbers. After the Taliban retook Afghanistan, TTP attacks in Pakistan went through the roof. In 2024, more than 2,200 people were killed in terror-related attacks. By 2025, that number had almost doubled to over 4,000. For any government, this was an unsustainable crisis. Something had to break. And it did. The conflict escalated incredibly fast. In October 2025, Pakistan launched its first ever direct airstrikes on Kabul. Then, in February 2026, a TTP border attack was met with a full-scale military offensive from the Afghan Taliban against Pakistan. That was the last straw, leading to Pakistan's formal declaration of war. And just a few weeks later, the conflict hit a horrifying new low when a Pakistani airstrike allegedly hit a hospital, killing hundreds. Which brings us to the tragic conclusion of this whole mess, a story that is just defined by one thing: a deep, bitter irony for Pakistan. You see, the military reality is that neither side can win. Pakistan has total air superiority, but they can't invade on the ground. Why? Because Afghanistan's terrain is practically built for guerrilla warfare, and the Taliban are the undisputed masters of it. Just ask the Soviets, or the Americans. The likely result is just an endless, bloody cycle of conflict and ceasefires.
So let's think about that original goal. The whole reason Pakistan got into this business in the first place, to gain strategic depth against India, has completely, totally evaporated.
And here it is, the ultimate irony. The Taliban, the very weapon Pakistan built to use against India, is now going around Pakistan and signing trade deals directly with India. Indian companies are getting contracts in Afghanistan. The Taliban now sees India as an important partner. It's a tragic chain of events. Pakistan created the Taliban, who then sheltered the TTP, who in turn attacked Pakistan. And now Pakistan is trapped, trying to extinguish a raging fire that it started decades ago. And it leaves you with a haunting question. Can you ever really put out a fire you lit yourself? And how many more innocent people will get burned in the process?